Okay guys, we're about to wrap up one more piece of code, and then we're going to put it all together in Unity. So let's take a look at how we do that. If we take a quick look at the code from last time, you'll remember, as we've mentioned, we need to write a second script to fix these errors that are showing up right here. Let's get that out of the way real quick. It's very small and simple, especially compared to this one. And then we'll get into hooking this all up in Unity. So let's just come into our scripts folder, control-click, create, C# script, and this one we will simply name item with a capital I. Double-click to open in MonoDevelop. We don't need to add anything up above the mono behavior, and we don't need an update or start function, so I'm just going to get rid of these. And we just need a few quick variables here. We want a public string called item name, all one word with a capital N, and end in a semicolon. Oh, typo. Not string, string. So when we hover on an object and we want to know what it is, we can simply type into this string in Unity what we want that to show up as, whether it's water or bottled water, or if you're not doing thirst, it could show up as food or health kit or bandages, whatever. Next, we want another public, and this time a bool. That's a boolean for water, or at least I'm setting mine to water. The reason we're doing this public boolean is if you wanted to have multiple things, you could have a bool for water and food and health kit, and then you could simply check which one you wanted this item to be. Next, a public float, simply called value. The number that we enter here in Unity will determine how much value this pickup has, meaning how much it will heal us or add to our thirst. So the bigger the number, the more thirst it will restore. Now our last variable, a quick public, and this one needs to be typed just the same way that you typed your script from last week. So player vitals is what it was for me, and then space player vitals with a lowercase p and a capital V, and semicolon, and you can see, because this is a script that I already have set up ready to go, that's turning blue because it knows what to reference. Now we just need one function with one if statement inside of it, so this is going to go pretty quick. We're creating a public void called interaction. So interaction, one of those words that was showing up as red in our last script, and item was one of those things too. So these are what's going to go back and make that script understand what we're talking about. So we're creating a new function, which means a new set of curly brackets to contain everything. So inside of here, we will say if, and with every if statement, we need parentheses, and the condition is water. So if we're interacting with water, we need a new set of curly brackets to set up this if statement. So if the thing that we're interacting with is water, then we will go to playervitals.thirstslider.value and do a plus equals to value. So while this may seem a little obtuse or confusing, this value right here is simply going to be referencing the value that we set. So on every object that we put this code on, we can set a small bottle of water's value to be 2, and a big gallon of water to be 10. And then we can change this value as needed on every object we put it on, so that you can have things restore more or less health or hunger or thirst or whatever you're working with. And that's it. So now we will file and save, and that should be all of the code that we need to write. Hooking it up in Unity will feel like a breeze compared to what we just did. So let's go check on our player interact script and see how it's doing now. We'll do a new debug, and all of a sudden it has no problems at all, because now it knows where this item script is, it understands what we're talking about when we say interaction, and it's happy now. Everything makes sense to it. We don't need to make any changes there, just making sure that we referenced everything properly and it looks good. Alright, so this part will be fun and easy compared to all that code that we just wrote. Let's create the quickest, simplest game object that we can to represent water that we can pick up and drink. If yours is food or a health kit, you can do something a little bit different, but I'm just going to go to Game Object, 3D Object, and I'll make a cylinder like you saw in my example. I'll just scale this down a little bit and move it out of the way from my character, but not too far, so that I can easily test this. Note that when I started this process, I wasn't zoomed out in the middle of nowhere. I make sure that when I'm creating something I want to test, I double-click on my FPS controller so that I can create things close to home, so they're easy to test and interact with. Now, this isn't pretty, and we could easily go to the asset store and find something better to use. But for the sake of a quick test, if I wanted to make this a little bit cuter, I could do something like create a material, like I've already done here, just to show you the process. Control-click, create, material, I'll call this water this time. So, with the material selected, I'll just go up and click on this white box here, and I'll pick a color that I think represents water just fine. We'll make this one look a little different. Drag this onto here, and here's my new water game object. I'll rename this water, just so it's easier to understand in my hierarchy. Next, I'll go into my assets and my scripts folder, and with water selected, I will take the item script that I just wrote, and I'll drag this over and attach it to my water in the inspector. With the script here, I'll call this water, or I could call it water jug if I want to be more specific. I'll check the box that says water. I'll determine how much of a difference this should make when we click on it and drink it. This looks like a pretty big jug, so I'll set this at 10. And now player vitals. I need to go over and I need to take my FPS controller, because that is where my player vitals script is attached in the scene, and I need to drag my FPS controller over here so it knows where to reference this player vitals script. So this script is all set up, but there's still a couple more things I need to do to get my water game object ready to go. In our script, we're referencing a tag, and that tag is consumable. Now, I've already created this as a test, but you won't see this here. So what you need to do is you need to select Add Tag at the very bottom, and then you need to click on plus, and then you need to type in consumable, just like that, and click Save. Now, once you've done that, it won't automatically tag this as consumable. You need to go back and select it, click on your tag dropdown, and then you will see the consumable tag that you just created as an option. Select it, and now it's tagged as a consumable game object. Next, layer. We're also using a layer mask. Our array can only detect things on a certain layer mask. So right now, this game object wouldn't be detected. So we need to go to layer, and I have this interactable layer here, but you don't have this yet. So you will need to click on add layer, and you will need to come down to one of these many slots below 7. So you can do layer 8 or 9 or 10 or 29, doesn't really matter, but type in the word interactable, just as I have, and then go back and select your object. And now when you select the layer dropdown, you can change it from default to the layer that you created, named interactable. So the game object itself is ready to go, but we still need to hook up our player interact script with our player somehow. So you need to go over and on your FPS controller, click this little arrow on its left to expand it, and select the first person character right underneath FPS controller. This is basically our main camera while we're playing the game. This is where we want to attach your player interact script. So I'll simply drag it over into the hierarchy and drop it off there. Now you can see we have a few things to set up here, but this will be pretty easy too. Where it says new layer mask, we'll click on that and we'll select the layer mask that we just created called interactable. Where it says player vitals, just like we did before, we'll go and we'll take our FPS controller and we will drag this over into the player vital slot on our script. Now we have crosshair and item name text. But we don't really have these things in the game yet, so let's go add them real quick. Let's go back into 2D mode by clicking right here, and let's go look at our canvas. So here's our canvas. This is our big picture of the user interface, what the player sees while they're playing the game, overlaid on their camera. We have our thirst slider in the bottom left, but right now we want to add a crosshair that's in the middle. We'll do the easiest crosshair possible, which is just a little circular dot. Simple, but very effective. So on our canvas, I will control click and go down to UI, and then select image. I'll name this image crosshair, just so I know what's what. Then, with my crosshair image selected, you can see right now it's a white box. I want to change this, so I'll go over to the right, and I will change the source image by clicking on this little circle select, and I'll go pick from something that I have lying around. I'll change it from the box that we have right now to the knob. So while I like the knob better than the square that we had before, it's still very much oversized. This would take up way too much room on our screen and look really ugly. So I'll just take my scale tool and I will scale this down to be quite a bit smaller. I'll leave it a little bit bigger than I normally would just so you can see it a little bit better. So this is my slightly oversized crosshair for right now. So to hook this up, let's go back to my first person character, and here where it says crosshair, I will select and drag over Crosshair and drop it into that slot, and now we're good to go there. But we still want our item name text. This will be really easy. Just here on our panel, I will control click and go to UI and then text. So my new text I will call interact text. I'll double click on it to get a little bit closer to it, and right now it might be a little bit larger than I want it, but I'll leave it large so that you can see it more easily. Also change the color so that it's white so it shows up a little bit better. And this may look kind of ugly right now, but remember, with the way that our script is interacting with it, it will turn it off when we don't want to see it, and it will change the text to say whatever we want it to say according to the script. So we've really already got that mostly ready to go. We just need to go back to our first person character, and where it says item name text, and right now it has none, we will drop in our interact text. And let's save our scene. And let's go give it a test play. Alright, you can see our crosshair in the middle of the screen. Again, it's quite large, but I want it to be easy for you to see. And our thirst is degrading ever so slowly. I might want to tune that back up so it's easier to see as an example. But when I hover on my little water game object, we see that my crosshair glows red. The text shows up in the bottom left-hand corner saying water jug. And when I'm not hovering on it, that text disappears, so it's not in our way. Now I'm starting to get a little bit thirsty. Let's see what happens when I click on it. And it looks like we filled back up to the top. We're going to go back and tweak our thirst so that we get thirsty a little bit faster, so this is easier to see. Alright, so you can see how thirsty we're becoming here. And when I click on it, we fill back up. Now, one thing I forgot to do, or it kind of depends on the way that you want to use this. Let's say that this was a fountain or a well, and you wanted to always be able to come back here and drink from it. Well, this mechanic would be working perfectly. But if you want this to be a consumable object that disappears after you've clicked on it and used it up, we just show you can make one very quick tweak to your code to make it so that this will disappear after you've clicked on it. So we're just going back really quickly into our player interact script. And the one line of code that I forgot to mention here is if we go down below raycasted object, we can do one more quick raycasted object line, except this time, instead of .getComponent, we're just going to do .setActive, and then in parentheses, false. And put a semicolon at the end, make sure that we save that change. And now when we go to drink our water, we'll let our thirst fall a little bit, click on it, and there we go. It's disappeared. We've drank it, but now we're going to need to go in search of more water somewhere else. So I know that was kind of a lot, but it's a pretty cool mechanic to be able to put into your game, and there's so much that you can do with it between hunger and thirst and health, and it really starts to make the game feel like a playable survival game where the player might have to really explore and find resources to keep playing. So do your best, feel free to play with the style. You can move around your sliders, you can include thirst and hunger sliders if you want. You could change your UI, you don't have to have this slider in the bottom left, you can change that location. You don't have to use a very basic dot for a crosshair. You could probably find a much more interesting image on Google Images or on the Asset Store. I went and found some bottles of water on the Asset Store that I could use to make this look a little bit better than just a blue cylinder. So look for assets, play with your UI, make it a little bit unique to you and have some fun with it. And that's all for this week. So be sure to take a screenshot of what you've accomplished today and share it in the comments on Schoology. Until next time, good luck and have fun.